What if I told you that the man who struggles to order food at a restaurant just bought 3 countries? Yes, you heard that right. Mr. Bean is now worth $50 billion, and the way he made this fortune will blow your mind. Cut to fake news headlines flashing. Breaking. Silent millionaire revealed. Local man accidentally becomes richest person alive. Bean empire. How teddy bears built an economy. Wall Street speechless. Mystery man breaks all records. Picture this. The same guy who got stuck in a turkey, who painted his apartment with a firecracker, and who fell asleep during his own driving test, is now richer than Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates combined. Montage of Bean's disasters with money counter sound effects. But here's the absolutely insane part. He doesn't even know he's rich. This man is currently using billion-dollar government bonds as napkins. And wait until you hear what he did with his first $1 million check. Bean wiping his mouth with paper. I spent weeks investigating this story, and what I discovered will change how you think about success forever. The twist at the end will shock you more than his dance moves, and trust me, you've never seen anything like this before. Quick montage of Mr. Bean's funniest moments with epic music. So grab your popcorn, because we're about to dive into the most unbelievable rags-to-riches story in human history. Section 1. The Accidental Investment, 3:30 to 8:30. It all started on a Tuesday morning in London. Mr. Bean was trying to buy a newspaper to read the comics, the only part he actually understands. But as usual, things went hilariously wrong. Scene description. Bean at newspaper stand, rain starting. The newspaper stand's card reader was broken, so Bean was directed to a nearby building to pay. But here's where Bean's legendary confusion kicks in. Building montage showing multiple similar doors. He walked into what he thought was a payment center, but it was actually the London Stock Exchange's public trading terminal. The security guard, thinking Bean was a VIP investor because of his serious face, escorted him to a premium trading station. Fancy trading floor sounds. Bean sat down at this $1 million computer setup and tried to buy his 50-cent newspaper. He kept pressing buttons, getting more frustrated as numbers kept appearing on the screen instead of his newspaper. Keyboard clicking, Bean's frustrated expressions. In his confusion, he accidentally invested his entire life savings, $500, into a tiny company called Teddy Bear Technologies. But that's not the crazy part. Dramatic pause. While Bean was pressing random buttons trying to get his newspaper, he accidentally set up an automated trading algorithm. The system interpreted his frustrated button mashing as advanced trading signals. Sound effect, cash register, money printing. Within hours, his $500 had automatically purchased stocks in toy companies, fabric manufacturers, and even a small cotton farm. That same day, Teddy Bear Technologies announced they were merging with Mattel, Hasbro, and Lego. Stock price climbing sound effects. Bean's $500 became $50,000 overnight. But did Bean celebrate? Absolutely not. He spent the next 3 hours trying to get his newspaper out of what he thought was the world's most complicated vending machine. Bean shaking the computer, security guards watching in confusion. Now, you know how Bean is absolutely obsessed with his teddy bear? Well, that obsession was about to multiply his fortune in the most ridiculous way possible. Scene. Bean walking down the street, hugging Teddy. Bean received a bank statement in the mail, his first ever. But instead of seeing it as money information, he thought it was a shopping list because it had numbers and names on it. Bean studying the paper upside down. The statement showed his $50,000 balance and listed Teddy Bear Technologies as his biggest holding. Bean's brain translated this as, buy more teddy bears, you need 50,000 of them. Light bulb moment sound effect. So Bean embarked on the most epic teddy bear shopping spree in history. He walked into Hamleys, the biggest toy store in London, pointing at every single teddy bear and nodding enthusiastically. Toy store chaos sounds. The store manager thought Bean was a major distributor placing a massive wholesale order. Bean's pointing and nodding was interpreted as yes, I'll take 1,000 of each. Cash register sounds going crazy. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Bean didn't have cash. so he handed over his bank card. The transaction was so large, $2 million worth of teddy bears, that it automatically triggered a fraud alert. Alarm sounds. The bank called Bean to verify the purchase. Of course, Bean couldn't explain over the phone, so he just made teddy bear sounds, go, woof, squeaky noise. The bank representative thought it was a secret code from a VIP client. Phone conversation sounds. Instead of blocking the transaction, they upgraded Bean's account to ultra-premium status and gave him unlimited credit. Meanwhile, 10,000 teddy bears were being delivered to Bean's tiny apartment. Delivery truck sounds, boxes thudding. His neighbors were furious. Teddy bears were overflowing into the hallways, the elevator was jammed with plush toys, and Bean was having the time of his life building teddy bear forts. The neighbors complained to the city council, demanding Bean be fined for running an illegal business. The city inspector arrived and saw thousands of teddy bears with Teddy Bear Technologies tags. Official paperwork sounds. Plot twist time. The inspector thought Bean was the CEO of Teddy Bear Technologies running a secret distribution center. Instead of a fine, the city offered Bean a $10 million government contract to supply teddy bears to every school and hospital in London. Contract signing sounds. Bean signed the contract with a crayon because it was the only thing in his teddy bear's pocket. His net worth just jumped to $500,000, and he still thought he was just having a really good teddy bear day. You know how Bean always has the most disastrous restaurant experiences? Well, prepare yourself, because this disaster was about to make him a multimillionaire. Scene: Bean approaching Le Bernardin, a 5-star restaurant. Bean walked into the most expensive restaurant in London wearing his signature outfit, brown jacket, skinny tie, and that innocent smile that's about to cause millions of dollars worth of chaos. The Maître d' assumed anyone confident enough to walk in wearing that outfit to a $500 per meal restaurant must be either incredibly wealthy or completely insane. He decided to bet on wealthy. Bean was presented with a 15-page wine menu in French. Instead of admitting he couldn't read French, Bean stared at it intensely for 45 minutes, occasionally pointing and nodding like he was making sophisticated choices. Page turning, Bean's concentrated breathing. The sommelier thought Bean was conducting the most thorough wine analysis he'd ever witnessed. Every wine Bean randomly pointed at was brought to the table for approval. Wine bottles clinking, corks popping. But here's where Bean's legendary restaurant confusion reaches new heights. When the waiter asked if he'd like to see the chef's special selection, Bean thought he meant, would you like to see the kitchen? So he nodded enthusiastically. Kitchen doors swinging open. Bean wandered into the kitchen and started helping the chef. He reorganized the spice rack by color, rearranged the vegetables by size, and accidentally created 3 new dishes by mixing random ingredients. Chopping, sizzling, pots clanging. The head chef was initially horrified, but then he tasted Bean's accidental creations. They were absolutely incredible. Bean had somehow invented fusion cuisine by complete accident. Tasting sounds, chef gasping in amazement. Word spread through London's food scene like wildfire. Mystery culinary genius visits top restaurant. Food critics started calling Bean's techniques revolutionary intuitive cooking. Phone ringing, excited chatter. The restaurant owner was so impressed that he offered Bean a 50% partnership in his entire restaurant chain, 200 locations across Europe. The contract was worth $25 million. Contract papers shuffling. Bean signed the contract because he thought it was the check for his meal, and he always pays his bills. He used his teddy bear's paw to make the signature, thinking it would be cute. Pen scratching, teddy bear squeaking. Meanwhile, Bean was still trying to figure out how to eat the foam on his soup. He spent the entire business meeting blowing bubbles with his dessert, completely unaware he'd just become a restaurant mogul. Bubble blowing sounds, spoon clinking. His net worth, $25 million. But Bean's biggest concern was whether he could take the leftover bread home for his teddy bear. Now buckle up, because this next part is where Bean's story goes from hilarious to absolutely mind-blowing. Tech startup office sounds, keyboards clicking. Bean was walking past a tech company called Innovate Tech, when he saw people through the window staring at screens. Bean thought it was a really boring TV store, but he noticed they had a coffee machine. Bean wandered in and headed straight for the coffee machine, completely ignoring the authorized personnel-only signs. The tech workers assumed he was the new AI consultant they'd been expecting. Badge beeping, doors opening. While trying to operate the coffee machine, Bean's teddy bear fell behind a computer server. In his attempt to rescue his beloved teddy, Bean started unplugging random cables and pressing buttons. Computer beeping, cables unplugging, teddy bear muffled sounds. But here's where the magic happened. The company had been struggling for months with a complex AI program that wouldn't work properly. Bean's random button pressing accidentally deleted half the faulty code. Delete key sounds, error messages disappearing. But that's not all. While reaching for his teddy, Bean fell onto the keyboard and somehow rewrote the entire program. His face mashing on the keyboard created the world's first AI that communicates purely through facial expressions. Keyboard mashing sounds, computer processing. When the engineers returned from lunch, they found their broken AI was now perfectly functional. It could understand emotions, read facial expressions, and respond with perfect accuracy. Success notification sounds. They tested it immediately. Bean made a confused face at the screen, and the AI displayed the message, "User is confused and looking for a lost teddy bear." The accuracy was 100%. The tech world went absolutely insane. This was the breakthrough everyone had been waiting for. Silent communication technology. No more language barriers. News notification sounds, phone ringing. Within hours, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Meta started a bidding war for Bean's revolutionary silent communication protocol. The final offer? $2 billion. Auction sounds, numbers climbing. But here's the best part. Bean was still stuck behind the server trying to get his teddy bear. When they finally found him 3 hours later, he was having a tea party with his teddy using computer cables as teacups. Tea party sounds, teddy bear squeaking. The company's CEO handed Bean a $2 billion check, and Bean examined it carefully, then used it to wipe dust off his teddy bear's face. He thought it was a really fancy tissue. Bean kept the check in his teddy bear's pocket for 3 months, occasionally using it as a bookmark or a coaster for his teacup. His net worth, $2 billion, and he was still worried about whether the coffee was free. Just when you think Bean's story couldn't get more ridiculous, he accidentally becomes the biggest real estate mogul in New York City. And it all started with a trip to the post office. Post office sounds, people in line. Bean needed to mail a birthday card to his dentist. Yes, Bean sends birthday cards to his dentist, but he got confused by all the similar-looking buildings in downtown Manhattan. Instead of walking into the post office, Bean wandered into Sotheby's real estate auction house during their biggest sale of the year. The security guard saw Bean's serious expression and expensive-looking teddy bear and assumed he was a billionaire investor. Auction house ambience, people murmuring. Bean was seated in the VIP section, given a paddle, and offered champagne. He thought he was at the world's fanciest post office and the paddle was for playing ping pong later. The first property up for auction was a $50 million Manhattan penthouse. The auctioneer asked, "Are there any questions about this magnificent property?" Bean raised his hand because he was genuinely confused about where to buy stamps. Auction hammer sounds. The auctioneer interpreted this as a bid. "We have $50 million from the gentleman with the teddy bear." Bean looked around confused, wondering who had a teddy bear, completely forgetting he was holding one. People gasping, murmuring. Every time the auctioneer asked any more questions about different properties, Bean kept raising his hand. He was desperately trying to ask where the stamp machine was. Rapid auction calling, hammer banging repeatedly. In 2 hours, Bean accidentally bought 15 luxury apartments in Manhattan, 3 shopping centers in Brooklyn, 2 office buildings in Queens, a hotel in Times Square, and somehow, a small private island near the Bahamas. Multiple hammers banging, crowd cheering. The final tally? $8 billion in real estate. Bean was presented with a briefcase full of property deeds, contracts, and keys. He thought he'd won the world's most complicated lottery. Briefcase clicking open, keys jingling. But here's peak Bean behavior. He was most excited about a keychain shaped like the Statue of Liberty that came with one of the properties. He immediately put it on his teddy bear's neck as a necklace. Teddy bear squeaking, keychain jingling. Bean left the auction house and went straight to the nearest playground, where he gave away handfuls of keys to children, telling them they were magic keys for pretend games. Children laughing, keys rattling. Those children were now holding the keys to some of the most expensive real estate in America. Meanwhile, Bean was still looking for a post office, carrying $8 billion worth of property deeds in his teddy bear's backpack. By now, every news outlet in the world was desperately trying to interview the mysterious silent billionaire who's revolutionizing every industry he touches. But Bean had absolutely no idea what was happening. CNN, BBC, Fox News, and even international media were camping outside Bean's apartment building. They'd figured out his address from the teddy bear delivery records. Bean walked out to go grocery shopping and was immediately surrounded by 50 reporters shouting questions in 12 different languages. Bean thought it was the world's loudest flash mob. Overlapping voices. "Mr. Bean, how did you do it? What's your secret? Will you run for president?" Bean assumed they were lost tourists asking for directions to the London Eye. So he started doing what Bean does best: elaborate hand gestures and facial expressions to give directions. No dialogue, just Bean's expressive sounds. Bean pointed north, then south, made a circular motion with his hands, pretended to climb stairs, and finished with his signature confused shrug. The media went absolutely wild. Cameras clicking frantically. Business analysts immediately started interpreting Bean's gestures. The circular motion represents the cyclical nature of markets. The climbing gesture indicates his step-by-step approach to wealth building. The shrug shows his humble confidence. Harvard Business School invited Bean to give a lecture on revolutionary business strategies through interpretive movement. Princeton offered him an honorary PhD in nonverbal economic communication. But the real goldmine came when NBC offered Bean his own primetime business show. The contract was for $500 million over 5 years. Bean signed it because the NBC executive handed it to him with a pen, and Bean always signs things when people give him pens. Silent success with Bean became the most watched business program in television history. Each episode featured Bean trying to do normal activities while accidentally demonstrating advanced business principles. Bean tried to make breakfast but accidentally demonstrated efficient resource allocation by using one egg to make scrambled eggs, fried eggs, and an omelet simultaneously. Bean got lost in a shopping mall and accidentally created a case study on strategic market navigation by visiting every store in the most efficient possible route. The show was translated into 47 languages. Business schools worldwide started teaching the Bean method. His net worth from media deals alone, $3 billion. But Bean's favorite part of being on TV? The free sandwiches in the green room. He thought that was the whole point of the show. Now here comes the twist that absolutely nobody saw coming. And trust me, this ending will restore your faith in what really matters in life. After 8 months of being the world's richest man, owning half of Manhattan, revolutionizing technology, and having his own TV empire, Bean finally decided to check his bank balance. But why now? What changed? His teddy bear's right eye button fell off during breakfast. Bean was absolutely devastated. This wasn't just any button. It was the original button from when he first got Teddy as a child. Bean searched everywhere, under the sofa, in the refrigerator, even in his shoes. But the button was nowhere to be found. He remembered seeing sewing supplies advertised on ATM screens and thought maybe the bank could fix Teddy. Bean walked to the nearest ATM at 3 a.m., holding his one-eyed teddy bear, with tears in his eyes. He put in his card hoping to find a teddy bear repair service option. When the balance appeared on screen, $50 billion, Bean stared at it for a full minute. But instead of excitement, he was confused. He thought the machine was showing him how many buttons they had in stock. Bean pressed every button on the ATM trying to order one teddy bear button. But each press was actually performing massive financial transactions. In his panic to fix Teddy, Bean accidentally donated $10 billion to UNESCO for education. Another $15 billion went to hospitals worldwide, $20 billion to environmental protection, and $5 billion to orphanages. But here's the most incredible part. Bean's final transaction was donating his remaining fortune to the Global Teddy Bear Comfort Project, a charity that gives teddy bears to children in need. In 15 minutes of button pressing, Bean went from $50 billion to having $3.47 left in his account. But instead of regret, something magical happened. The next morning, Bean received 10,000 thank you letters from around the world. Children from 50 countries had drawn pictures of teddy bears and sent them to Bean. But the most special letter came from a little girl in Romania who had received one of the donated teddy bears. Inside the envelope was a tiny button with a note, "For your teddy's eye, from my teddy's coat." Bean sat on his floor, surrounded by thank you letters, carefully sewing the new button onto his teddy's face. And for the first time in months, he smiled his genuine Bean smile. That afternoon, Bean went back to his normal life, trying to make tea, getting confused by traffic lights, and having adventures with his perfectly repaired teddy bear. The media called it the greatest act of philanthropy in history. But Bean never read the news. He was too busy having a tea party with Teddy, using thank you letters as placemats. And that's how Mr. Bean accidentally became the richest man in the world, revolutionized 4 different industries, became a media mogul, and then gave it all away for a teddy bear button. Sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't worth billions, they're worth everything. If this incredible story touched your heart and made you laugh, smash that subscribe button. Because in a world obsessed with making money, sometimes we need to remember what Bean taught us. Happiness isn't about what you have, it's about treasuring what you love. And who knows? Maybe Bean's next adventure will accidentally solve world hunger. Stranger things have happened in the wonderful world of Mr. Bean. In one button press, he went from richest man alive to having $3.47 in his account. But here's the beautiful ending. Bean was happier than ever. Why? Because the charity sent him a thank you card with a picture of 1,000 teddy bears. And that's how Mr. Bean became a billionaire, changed the world, and gave it all away for a picture of teddy bears. Sometimes the best investments are the ones that make us smile. If this story made you laugh, smash that subscribe button. Because if Bean can accidentally become a billionaire, imagine what we can do on purpose. But wait, there's more to this incredible story. 6 months after Bean's great giveaway, something unexpected started happening. Remember all those businesses Bean accidentally revolutionized? Well, they didn't forget about him. The restaurant chain Bean co-owned started the Bean intuitive cooking method and became the most successful restaurant franchise in Europe. His silent AI technology became the foundation for helping people with speech disabilities communicate. Millions of people worldwide were now using Bean communication to express themselves. And those properties he accidentally bought? The new owners turned them into affordable housing for families in need, calling them Bean communities where everyone helps everyone. But here's the most amazing part. Bean never asked for credit, royalties, or recognition. He was just happy that his teddy bear had both eyes again. Standing outside was a delegation from the United Nations, the Mayor of London, the President of the Tech Innovation Council, and 500 children from around the world. They presented Bean with the first ever Global Humanitarian Impact Award, not for making billions, but for giving them all away. The ceremony lasted 3 hours, and Bean spent the entire time playing peekaboo with the children. Today, Bean still lives in his little apartment, still gets confused by simple things, and still has tea parties with his teddy bear. But unknowingly, he changed the world by simply being himself. And that, my friends, is the most incredible rags to richness of heart story ever told. Sometimes the biggest impact comes from the smallest gestures. If this story inspired you to believe that anyone can change the world in their own unique way, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this video with someone who needs to smile today. And remember, you don't need billions to make a difference. Sometimes all you need is a kind heart, a teddy bear, and the courage to be wonderfully, uniquely you.